Occupy by Noam Chomsky is a collection of speeches, essays, and interviews in which Chomsky reflects on the Occupy Wall Street movement that began in 2011. The movement, which protested economic inequality and corporate influence on politics, captured global attention and represented a significant moment of political and social activism. In this book, Chomsky provides historical context for the movement, critiques the neoliberal economic system, and emphasizes the importance of grassroots activism in challenging the status quo. Chomsky situates the Occupy movement within the broader history of popular resistance to injustice and inequality. He explains that the movement was a response to decades of economic policies that favored the wealthy and powerful at the expense of ordinary people. The slogan, "We are the 99%, captured the widespread frustration with a system in which a small elite controls a disproportionate share of wealth and power. Chomsky points out that Occupy was not just about economic inequality, but also about the erosion of democracy. He argues that corporate interests have increasingly dominated the political process, rendering ordinary people's voices almost irrelevant. The financial crisis of 2008, which led to millions losing their homes and jobs, while the government bailed out the banks responsible for the collapse, was a key factor in sparking the movement. Occupy was a reaction to the perceived corruption and failures of the political and economic systems, both of which seemed to serve the interests of the elite. Chomsky emphasizes that the movement's origins can be traced to a long history of popular struggles for justice, such as the labor movements of the early 20th century and the civil rights movement. He notes that these historical movements faced similar challenges from powerful elites and were able to achieve significant change through grassroots organizing, civil disobedience, and direct action. A central focus of Occupy is Chomsky's critique of neoliberalism, the dominant economic ideology that has shaped global politics since the 1970s. Neoliberalism emphasizes deregulation, privatization, free markets, and austerity, often to the detriment of public welfare. According to Chomsky, neoliberal policies have concentrated wealth in the hands of a small elite, while increasing poverty, inequality, and economic instability. Chomsky discusses how neoliberalism has eroded social safety nets, weakened labor rights, and led to the privatization of essential services like healthcare and education. He explains that these policies have disproportionately harmed the working class and poor, while benefiting corporations and the wealthy. The Occupy movement, Chomsky argues, was a reaction to the growing disparity between the rich and the rest of society, as well as the increasing influence of corporations over government policy. Chomsky also critiques the financial system, particularly the role of Wall Street and large financial institutions in driving economic inequality. He argues that these institutions have created a system of financialization in which profits are made through speculation rather than productive investment. This system, according to Chomsky, has little regard for the broader economy or the well-being of society, leading to recurrent crises, like the one in 2008. Another key theme in Occupy is the erosion of democracy, both in the United States and globally. Chomsky argues that corporate interests have come to dominate the political process, effectively transforming democracies into plutocracies, where the wealthy control government decisions. He points to the role of corporate money in politics, particularly in the form of campaign contributions and lobbying, as a major factor in the decline of democratic governance. Chomsky is particularly critical of the U.S. political system, where he sees both major parties, Democrats and Republicans, as largely beholden to corporate donors and elites. This, he argues, limits the range of political debate and ensures that policies reflect the interests of the wealthy rather than those of ordinary citizens. The result is a system in which economic and political power is concentrated in the hands of a few, while the vast majority are left with little influence over the decisions that affect their lives. The Occupy movement, according to Chomsky, was a direct challenge to this concentration of power. By creating spaces for democratic participation and horizontal decision-making, Occupy attempted to model a more participatory form of politics, one in which people could take control of their own lives and communities. Chomsky views this emphasis on direct democracy as one of the movement's most important contributions. Chomsky emphasizes the importance of grassroots movements in challenging entrenched systems of power and bringing about social change. He points out that significant progress in history, whether in labor rights, civil rights, or women's rights, has always come from popular mobilization, not from elites. The Occupy movement, in his view, represents a continuation of this tradition of bottom-up activism. Chomsky acknowledges that Occupy faced significant challenges, including repression from the state, media misrepresentation, and internal struggles over direction and leadership. However, he argues that the movement succeeded in shifting public discourse around economic inequality and challenging the legitimacy of the existing political and economic order. For Chomsky, the movement's real success lies in its ability to inspire others to question the status quo and organize for change. Chomsky also highlights the importance of solidarity and collective action in confronting powerful elites. He argues that individual efforts, while important, are not sufficient to create meaningful change. Instead, people must come together in organized movements to challenge the structures of power that perpetuate inequality and injustice. Chomsky has long critiqued the role of the media in shaping public perception, and this theme is prominent in Occupy. He argues that mainstream media outlets, which are owned by large corporations, often serve to marginalize dissenting voices and protect the interests of the elite. The media's coverage of the Occupy movement, according to Chomsky, was a clear example of this. Chomsky notes that the media initially ignored the Occupy movement, only paying attention once it became impossible to dismiss due to its growing size and influence. When the media did cover the movement, it often portrayed protesters as naive, disorganized, or even dangerous. This negative framing, Chomsky argues, was a deliberate attempt to discredit the movement and prevent it from gaining widespread public support. Despite these challenges, Chomsky argues that the proliferation of alternative media sources, particularly online, has allowed movements like Occupy to bypass the traditional media gatekeepers and reach a broader audience. He sees the rise of independent journalism and social media as crucial tools for grassroots movements to communicate their message and mobilize support, while the Occupy encampments were eventually dismantled. Chomsky argues that the movement's impact should not be measured by its immediate outcomes. Instead, he sees Occupy as part of a broader and ongoing struggle for justice, equality, and democracy. Chomsky emphasizes that social movements often take time to achieve their goals, and their effects may not be immediately visible. He compares Occupy to earlier movements, such as the labor movement and the civil rights movement, which faced significant repression and setbacks, but ultimately achieved major victories. Chomsky suggests that Occupy helps to lay the groundwork for future activism by raising awareness of economic inequality and creating a new model of participatory democracy. Chomsky is optimistic about the potential for future movements to build on Occupy's legacy. He points to the increasing discontent with neoliberal policies and corporate control as a sign that more people are becoming aware of the need for systemic change. While the challenges are immense, Chomsky believes that grassroots activism, solidarity, and collective action offer the best hope for making a better future.